Well, I was looking at ways to hook this on. I was about to hook this hook under through here, but I didn't like the way the end of the hook was kind of stuck between here and the rod. I was worried about it damaging this rod. And then just now, I went to move the carriage out of the way, and as I rotated the carriage, I noticed it's pulling this rod out. So now that this bracket had broke, what happens now is this whole rod's pulling out. So I'm thinking now maybe you just take that rod out altogether. Looks like maybe, oops. So we get a little gear. Now doesn't that look like that should have a pin in it? Sure as heck looks like it should have a pin in it. Well, maybe not. There's no hole in the rod that I can see. Or is there? Ah, there's a key. Oh. Alright, so I think I could just take this whole rod out of the way. Well, you know, now that I got the rod off, I'm thinking I can take the whole carriage off. Or is there anything that's gonna... maybe that bracket right there stops it from going off to the... Yeah, that looks like that's gonna be in the way. Yeah, I'm going to leave the carriage on there. There's actually a bracket on the bottom, plate on the bottom here. You take the bolts out, and then that's how you take the carriage off. But I'll leave it on there, just move it a little bit out of the way. Now I can hook here, and when I'm pulling up, it shouldn't damage anything. Inside of the ways there, maybe? No. All right. So now I'm going to put some auxiliary straps on to stabilize it, and hopefully we'll be able to lift it. We'll lift it real slow with the come along, and then with the chain fall, I should say, and then that way we can kind of see how it's going to act. Alright, it's not exactly the way I wanted it. Would have liked to have had the back pulled up a little more, but it's okay. So now I'm just going to lower it to the ground onto this board. Very slowly. Alright, now I got it down on the board. Turns out this board is just long enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lag screw this lathe down to this board. And I'm going to use that board kind of as a sled to go down the stairs. And the other thing I'm going to do is, now that I've got a better look at this out in the daylight, I can see that well, first thing I noticed is the motor he's got on here. I noticed the motor had a shaft coming out the other end, and he actually put a little grinding wheel on there. So I guess he could walk around the backside and do a little grinding on that if he wanted to. But this motor must have been an old pedestal grinder, because there's actually down, buried in here, there's a on-off switch, which is no longer being used. I think he just bypassed it. So anyways, that's held onto this mounting bracket off the back here with just a bolt here and a bolt there. I'm going to take this motor off, and that's going to take a lot of this weight that's causing the thing to want to tip backwards towards this way off of here. It'll make it much more stable for me when I'm going down the stairs. So that'll be well worth the effort of taking that motor off. And get that bolted down, get the motor off. We'll get some plywood down across the treads of the bulkhead stairs to give us some ease in getting this down the basement, and we'll work on getting this down in the cellar. Alright, so I got the motor unbolted, and I don't even think I'm going to put this motor back on. I think we can do better than this. This motor here, because of the base that's cast, you know, this is a specialized base that came with this motor, because this was, again, I'm pretty sure this was a bench grinder originally. Might even say what the heck it was here. I don't know. Yeah, Craftsman. Something top motor. capacitor motor. But still, it's got the switch right on the front here. Looks like a bench grinder. Anyways, got that unusual spacing right there. So that's why he had only 2 bolts in it, because the other holes weren't lining up. So he literally had it on there and actually had it kind of crooked. So not the ideal setup. Worked though. But what I'm thinking I'm going to do is probably just put a regular motor with a base plate on there that will line up with these holes better. You can see there's quite a bit of forgiveness here. They made the holes elongated and at an angle. So I should be able to find something that fits on there better. And then what I'll end up doing is rewiring it. It's got the wiring. Look at that insulation on there. Pretty bad shape. That's probably the original wiring going back to the switch up in the front over here. And then he just kind of spliced that in here. So the cord, he's got it spliced in so the power, one lead's going to the motor, the other lead's going over to the switch, then coming back from the switch and going over to the motor. So it worked fine for his purposes, but I've got to undo this anyways because I want to completely have the motor disconnected from this for moving purposes. And since I'm going to end up doing that anyways, and the insulation's just breaking off of this switch really bad, I think the prudent move is going to be for me to disconnect it from the switch box altogether, which, oh, where the heck does that wire come in? The back side here? That's a pain. So, where is that going? Oh, I see there's a hole there that it runs through. Right there. Tight squeeze. I'd be willing to bet we just take this plate off, disconnect the wires from there, we'll probably be able to pull it right through. Yep, took the cover off, and what we got here is a regular, a failure to communicate. What we have is a regular single pole light switch. So that switch does not look original, but it fits in the box nice. Oh, actually looks like it's an old two-way switch. Got the extra connection right there. It's not double pole because there isn't a fourth screw over here. Look at this nightmare in here. Look at this wiring. This insulation. That's bare wire right there where my finger is. It's just so dirty you can't see it. There's a little bit of nylon cording in there, but I can feel the metal. That's just a it's just an electrician's nightmare right there. And then also this wire was just kind of curled around the screw and tightened down. And this one still has the little spade connector on it, which is nice. Not that it matters because the condition of the wire it's attached to is so poor. Then in the back here we've got a grommet, or what's left of a grommet. It's not a Wallison grommet. I don't know how many people are going to get that reference. But hey, what would one of my videos be without the occasional obscure reference? Okay, so now let's see if we can just pull this nasty wire covered with oil. Oh, you hear that crackling noise? That's the insulation just falling off of it. Oh, look at that. Look how brittle this insulation is. Oh, yeah, we can do better than that. I had a little bit of trouble pulling that out because the insulation breaking off was jamming in that hole. It's kind of tight clearance. That wire is not too good. Well, now that I got this out here and I'm looking at it, the more I'm looking at it, the more I'm thinking this is a good time to clean this thing. I could throw some plastic down and give it a really good washing, and it'll be nice and clean when I put it down in the basement instead of having to make that mess down in the basement. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift this back up in the air, get some plastic underneath it to catch all of the garbage that I brush off of it first. I really don't want all that crap all over the ground. Well, with the motor off the back there, it's a lot more stable. It's staying a lot more vertical. I did still put another strap on here to make sure it stays vertical while I'm working on it. I decided to just lift the whole damn thing up in the air. That's what I'm working at. I'm working at waist height here instead of having to be down on the ground screwing around with it. Got my plastic down on the ground to catch all the droppings. Alright, here's a look after the first brush down. Got all the heavy stuff that's not really sticking for the most part off. But you can see there's just a lot of stuff that's just, it's gunk, because it's all of the dust and dirt and everything else that stuck to the oil that was on the machine, built up over the years, and there's really no way of getting that out without some sort of a cleaner. Well, in absence of anything else, I'm using this gunk engine degreaser. Problem is, I think this was my last can and didn't have much in it. But I've sprayed this down and it's soaking in and it's doing its job, dissolving all that gunk. Alright, I just hit this with some rags and you can see it's cleaning up now. You can start to see. I originally thought this was all black because this is black paint out here, but it turns out this is all gray underneath all this gunk. So you can see it's starting to clean up, but still got a ways to go. This is the characteristic. If you look into the research of the history of the Atlas lathes, this is one of the characteristics that tells you this is one of the really early 9-inch prototype models, or 9-inch versions of this lathe, because of this unique splayed foot design, which is unique to this series of 9-inch lathe. They didn't make a lot of 9-inch lathes. They went to the 10-inch shortly after this.